Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Here we are, the start of a brand new year, and many of us looking for change, maybe a new career, maybe a side job. What about real estate? More and more, I'm seeing in my circles, people are getting their license and entering into that career field. What should you know? What's behind it? Is it just getting a license, being good at math? I don't know. He has had a career for many, many years, and interesting story behind him we heard last time we got together with him. And we're going to learn about that today. What's it like in the real estate field? He's a broker and co-owner of the Witry Collective Real Estate in New Orleans, and he's back with us. A Rector joins us here on the program. How you doing today, Brett?
I am fine, Steve. Good morning. How are you? Or good afternoon, I guess it is.
We're on the East Coast. Yeah, we're both on the same time zone. And a happy New Year. I know that it's been a challenging start for you and the people of New Orleans with some recent events. So I'm very sorry to hear about that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, New Orleans is a very resistant city, and the people are very loving and caring and we lift one another up. So we'll traverse this. Obviously in the rich history of this city, they've traversed a lot of tragedies and always seem to rise above it. And I feel confident that the city will continue to move forward in a very positive, upbeat direction.
I detect that in you in the times that we've gotten together in terms of there's just this overall feeling of love in New Orleans. And yes. The more and more people I talk to from that area or have moved to that area, I get that. I feel that. Real estate. Now, for you, it wasn't your first professional choice in terms of career. And it just kind of happened. I think we're going back to the early 2000s. Am I right?
Yes. 2003 was when I was initially licensed after being in the hospitality industry for a number of years. I had moved to a new city. I moved from Los Angeles to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And started in the hospitality industry there. It was very different than what I was accustomed to. And I had been looking for a home in New Orleans, and at the urging and sort of continual coaching from my real estate agent in New Orleans, Martha Ann Samuel, who really encouraged me to consider real estate as a career choice. I've reinvented myself professionally a few times in my adult years, and so I thought, well, it's a new city, new start. Let's try it. And so that's what I did. I chose to get into real estate. And the journey into getting into real estate is one that I think a lot of people decide to traverse along that path without really having a fully comprehensive understanding of what a real estate career looks like, and what the challenges are and what the requirements are and what is the foundation for building a successful business, because you really are in business for yourself. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what that looks like for people, things they should be considering rather than just information that they've seen on cable and information that they've seen online, because in reality, it is a very demanding and challenging career at, I think, more times than not, to be honest with you. Getting a real estate license is a relatively easy process if you're good at studying and passing exams. And, each state has a little variety in requirements. But basically, they'll have a number of hours that you have to complete in a classroom setting, be it in person, online, and then a school level exam to qualify to take the state administered exam. And that's a fairly easy process. I've done it twice. I did it initially in Florida, and then I had to redo it when I came to Louisiana, because Louisiana operates on a completely different law system than the rest of the country. operate under French or Napoleonic law code. And so I've done it a couple of times, and it was a fairly painless process. Fortunately, I passed. Well, actually, I've done it 3 times, because when I went to get my broker's license in 2017, I had to retake the initial licensing course as well as the broker course, and then pass the broker exam. So, getting over that hurdle is not necessarily the most difficult obstacle you'll encounter in your life. Trust me. But what does your career look like from there? And how are you going to build a business? There are brokerages, and there are lead generation sources, and a number of different options out there that you can attempt. They're costly, they're time consuming, and the return on investment sometimes is negative as opposed to positive. So what can you do as an individual? We really have to look at what we refer to as your SOI, your sphere of influence. Who are your friends? Who are your family? Who are your colleagues from your current career who might be looking to make a home purchase, make a condominium purchase, lease a luxury apartment, or buy something for investment? Because there are many components of the real estate industry, and you can move in a lot of different directions. So building that client base, what do you want that to look like? Like when I first came here, I made a conscious decision that I wanted to work with young people starting out in their professions, maybe just recently married even, because I knew that as their career path, as they climbed up the ladder of their career, as they started a family and grew a family, that their initial home that I sold them maybe wasn't going to be a suitable home in 5 years. We're ready to move up. I also looked at, an aging clientele who have big, spacious homes. The children are all now grown. The children have moved away and live elsewhere. So other than 1 or 2 times a year when the family comes to visit and the grandchildren are in tow, they don't really need a 3,500 square foot house any longer. It's a lot of upkeep, so it's expensive to maintain. So I look for people who were possibly looking to downsize, and sell the family home and move into a condominium where they really had no responsibilities in terms of maintenance and repairs and those kinds of things. So you have to look at, what do you want your career to look like? Do you want to work with investors and builders, and that client base? Because that's a whole nother component. Depending on where you're at, the new construction aspect is something to consider. Or the people who are buying for investments to renovate and flip, or investments to renovate and use as short-term rentals or long-term leasing or corporate furnished rentals. There's a lot of different components. I think the other thing that a lot of people are maybe misguided on is the number of hours that, if you're going to do this as a career, and doing it part-time, I think is difficult to really fully service your clients. And I love my clients, but there are times that clients can be very like, I need to do this right this minute, type of thing. So you've got to have some flexibility in your schedule, and willingness. There are many times that we work 7 days and 7 days a week. There have been stretches where I haven't had a day off in 3 weeks. So you've got to be willing to put in the hours, the man hours, and your sweat equity, so to speak.
We identified a lot here, and an eye opener. One thing really stands out for me is that you're in business for yourself. I think many don't realize that. They get their license and they're just thinking, all right, well, I'm working with the ABC Real Estate, but you're a separate entity of them. So I think that needs, for somebody that's looking at this career path, needs to really embrace that. Do you have the discipline? Do you have the drive? We're all used to working for most of us working for others, a company. Now you're working for
Right.
yourself. You're just under the umbrella of an organization, the real estate, and looking at your social sphere, very impactful, and deciding what aspect of real estate you want to go into. Like you said, specializing in first-time home buyers, or maybe it's older folks that are looking to downgrade and sell. There's a lot to think there. What about networking yourself? I got to believe that that's somewhat of a big thing in this field.
Oh, absolutely. I think having a visible presence is crucial. And different people approach their social visibility different ways. They'll go to networking events. They'll go to, they'll virtually every real estate agent I know volunteers for local
Yeah.
charitable organizations and so on and so forth. You're
Yep.
not, you don't do that with the intention of this is going to build my real estate career, because if other people are volunteering and so on and so forth, they're not looking to have conversations about you spending money with me. They're looking at raising funds for that charity or doing things to help alleviate expenses that the charity not to incur.
Sure.
But I think that we as a profession, I think the most successful and the most highly respected are those people who find ways to give back to the community, whether you're volunteering for Habitat for Humanity to help build houses, or you're volunteering for a local pet organization doing dog walking, or here you're volunteering for the Preservation Resource Center, which is a local organization that is their foundation is the preservation of our historic neighborhoods, our historic homes, and maintaining that standard and the integrity of our neighborhoods and our architecture. So, there are a lot of different ways to get your face and name out there. Holding open houses, there are people, younger people, I think more so, that sort of criticize that. And yeah, there are times you're going to sit in a house for 2 hours and nobody's going to come. But you know what? The day the person walks through the door who doesn't have an agent that loves the house, but maybe this is not the right house for me, and you know 5 or 6 other houses that you can show them,
Sure.
based on what you've gotten from them in terms of information of what their wants and needs are. Those are the people who, you turn that person into a client, and their friends refer their friends, and so on and so forth.
Interestingly, I think of all of the successful real estate people I know, and they're all involved in charities.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
heavily so, some of them. And it's just because they want to give back to the community. They're not looking at, if I have an event, I show up at an event that, I'm gonna meet somebody and they're gonna buy a house. No, but it's the positivity you put out there, I believe, comes back, that kind of energy.
I agree. I think that, like I said, I think that's an important aspect of our profession. I think it's one that oftentimes doesn't get as much exposure as it should. Real estate agents oftentimes are maligned a little bit for, just chasing the money.
Yeah.
But I don't think the most successful ones that's the case at all. And I think it's the mindset, particularly I see it here much more, but obviously I've been here for almost 20 years as opposed to Fort Lauderdale for just 2. But it's something that I see here. Virtually every agent I know does some kind of community service.
Yeah.
Whether it's 2 events a year or whether it's once a month, they're still involved.
Looking back at your real estate career, is there anything you would have done differently?
I don't think so. I think I've overall made good choices. I think fully understanding fully understanding what the profession is about is important. You mentioned we've already mentioned, you're working for yourself, and yes, you may be under the umbrella of a big national firm, a company, so on and so forth. They have a level, even though you're not a paid employee, they have a level of expectation as to your annual production. The other thing that that a lot of new agents don't recognize or realize is that it is in your best interest to form an LLC and operate from that standpoint, and then pay yourself as an employee. And that's advice that I got very early on in my career from one of the local title attorneys here in New Orleans. And so I've had my own personal LLC for probably 17 years. And so that's another consideration, so that you're enabled to take advantage of the tax benefits and write-offs that are out there, because those things are crucial in helping keep your bottom line profitable.
Do you feel if somebody is entering into the field that, let's say they have another job, they're not crazy about it, they want to change of pace, real estate looks like it could be supporting them, just being around people, starting new lives. They just like the whole concept. Is it possible to attack it from a part-time aspect that turns into full-time?
I think it is to a certain degree, and I think it depends on your marketplace. I think that it is, but at some point as you build your client base and as your client base expands, you will have to make the decision of being able to walk away from that and devote a full-time schedule to the real estate profession.
Wow. How do you think real estate is doing right now in your area?
I mean, our area has struggled since obviously the financial sort of portrait of the country with interest rates and everything changed. In addition to that, we've had the challenge of multiple tropical events, hurricanes and so on and so forth, that have impacted the cost of homeowners insurance substantially throughout the region, the Gulf Coast region, not just New Orleans, but all of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Texas. We're all struggling with limited options in terms of insurers and premiums that have, in some case, as much as tripled for homeowners. And the economic demographic of your community dictates how palatable that is for your home buying and selling community. Your residents who are in the position to be able to incur that additional expense. And there are stories, I fortunately, my clients have not been in the position of having to make a decision to sell their house because their insurance cost has risen so much that they can no longer afford their monthly payment. But I know that is a reality for people in our region.
And definitely in Florida, I'm hearing a lot of that going on. As a matter of fact, a coworker bought a home there about 4 years ago, just sold that home in August. One of the main reason he sold it was he started to see the prices of homes start coming down because of the insurance issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that will be a sign of, you'll see prices coming down, you'll see population declines, so on and so forth. And I think that's probably the case in pretty much any community along the Gulf Coast. And but I also think it's something that's going to be felt. I'm sure it's a similar feeling in areas of California with the wildfires and the mudslides and so on and so forth. And so I think it's a scenario that is going to start impacting a much broader spectrum of the country than it has previously. You look at what happened in North Carolina and Tennessee with the hurricane this year. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so, as these weather events continue to grow in strength and intensity and frequency, I think a larger percentage of the national population is going to be impacted than they may realize at this point.
I understand those fears. Me personally, if I can pay lower taxes and less on a house, I'll take my chances. Granted, living on the water, all right, you're taking some higher chances right there. I get that.
Yes.
But I'm on Long Island. Hello, Superstorm Sandy, 2012. That water came halfway, into the land. And could have things happen. Things will happen.
Yes.
How did we find you, Brett? If somebody's, wants to pick your brain on the real estate side of things, or if they're looking to move to the greater New Orleans area, how do they find you?
You have a few different options, actually. You can Google my name. There's a famous baseball player with my first and last name. But if you Google Brett Rector New Orleans, I come up, in a variety of different ways. You can read reviews from me. You can read previous magazine articles that I've been featured in. But one of the easiest ways to reach me is to email me or contact me on my cell phone. My email is my first name at the @ at wcnola.com, all one word. And my cell phone is 504-453-2277. And like I said, all that information's out there, obviously, through a Google search as well. And a company website, you can contact me through that, wcnola.com.
Most important question of the day is, last time we got together was just before Christmas. You were baking for friends. How did it come out?
The cake was amazing. Yeah, I make toasted coconut cake with cream cheese frosting, and I have 2 pieces left. But the dinner was very nice. It was just myself and a good friend, and then my crazy wild dogs. And we had a very nice dinner early, and we had, she left a late afternoon, and we had a very nice day. And like I said, that cake is amazing.
Wow. You had me at toasted coconut, and I have a friend, and we go for coconut martinis occasionally, and she doesn't like toasted coconut. So I'm like, Brent, I'll take it. I'll take whatever you're going to turn away. I'm going to take, because I think it's magical. What it is there.
For sure.
Great talking with you, Brett, and looking forward next time we get together. Happy New Year, by the way.
Thank you so much, and Happy New Year to you as well, and to all the listeners and viewers today. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. And we'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.